Hello, scrappers, recyclers, and folks that are interested in investing in companies that are around the world of scrapping and recycling. Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live, where every week we talk about stuff that's going on in the precious metals market, industrial metal market, stocks of companies that somehow kind of sort of influence those markets and are also good dividend stocks. And we also have a nice little business tip of the week and a safety tip of the week. It is awesome to be back here with everybody. We've got some fun stuff to talk about coming up. I'm also looking forward to sharing with you what the results of my trip up to North Carolina from last week. So we're just going to have a really good time here now. A couple of things to note here right up front. We went to daylight savings time here in the US. I don't think that Ireland did yet. So right now it looks like there's a 1 hour gap between when I would normally end up and when Scrapping Irish would pick up. So he and I are kind of figuring out what we're going to do here. I may push forward, try to use up some of that gap in between. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We're kind of playing that one a little fast and loose right now. But I did see that Irish had checked in, so we'll see what he comes up with here. We'll figure something out. Truck Fan 542, welcome to the show. I see you've been here for a while. Cruiser Mac, great to have you here. David Philly, welcome to the show. Roger at See You Scrapping. Roger, you taking a break from moving into 1.5? Looks like a nice temporary place for sure, man. Let's see. Anybody else? JR Cat, great to have you here, man. All right, so yeah, you know that the daylight savings time thing. It's I can remember it used to be such a pain, right? You know, you got to remember before we had cell phones and a lot of the automation. You used to have to plan ahead to change your clocks and all this kind of stuff. And of course, now with the advent of our cell phones and our computers, all of that happens all by itself. So then the only thing you got to remember to do is to go around and change the clocks on things like, you know, if you have a standalone alarm clock in your microwave and your coffee maker and those kind of things. So, you know, it's a much more automated thing. And I imagine that eventually we're going to get to the, you know, there's a lot of people that don't like daylight savings time. And you constantly hear, you know, in the news, at least here in the US, there's a lot of people saying we ought to get rid of it. You know, no, we got to stay with it. We ought to get rid of it. We ought to stay with it. You know, I'm so used to it. I don't care one way or the other. I just wish we'd make up our minds. You know, it's just get on with it, right? You know, when I lived in Hawaii, we didn't do daylight savings time in Hawaii. So that was, you know, that was interesting because then, and I was still in the Navy at the time. So the challenge then was you had to remember that even though you didn't make the change in Hawaii, they did back in the mainland US. And so all of your meetings that were arranged back with commands and such back in mainland US, you still had to make the adjustment. So, we'll see what happens. I don't really think there's much value in sticking with daylight savings time anymore. Personally, I don't care if it's dark in the morning, light in the morning, those kind of things. So, if we were to decide as a nation that we were going to get rid of daylight savings time, I'd be okay with that. But it's not like I'm going to go out and start a political campaign to get rid of daylight savings time. It just doesn't make that much difference to me. Hello, Andrew. How are you doing, sir? Welcome to New Zealand. Of course, Andrew's a whole day ahead of us in New Zealand. So, all righty. Well, so that's that's the daylight savings time thing. We'll figure out what's going to happen there. And at some point, I expect Irish to check in with me and let me know Um, so yeah, he's just realized the issue too. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, so let's get over to our precious metals. What do you say? Our precious metal run for today, and we got to do this button here, and we got to do this button here, and then we got to do this button up here, and this one here, and this one here, and there we go. Yeah. Oh my. Hey, HH Recycling, great to have you here, man. All right, so where are we at with silver? So wait a minute. First, let's go over here to the 24-hour, and yeah, what do we got going on here? Boink. Let's do this. We started out here, and now we're down here, and it looks like it's down just a teeny tiny little bit, like 0.2%. So yeah, for the 24-hour, let's see, on the 3-day, we have, again, for the 3-day, we're down about 0.2%. But what's interesting in the 3-day is that you had, even though it's down a little bit, you know, you can see we were below that, we were above that. So a bit of variation going on. For the whole week, we're up. Now that's nice. So for the week, we climbed up from, we climbed up here. So it's nice to be a little bit higher. But you know, I'm still calling us in the buy area. Let's see now on the month. Yeah, well, you can really see we're up for the month. And for the quarter, well, so this is what's funny, right? So we're up here and we came down here. So technically we're down, you know, 4.36, but look at all of this. We were well below that line before we climbed back up again. So, you know, it was, we're climbing back out of, hopefully you did some buying last week because we climbed back out of that a little bit. You know, you could have bought in here for below 23 an ounce. Well, the spot was 23 an ounce, depending upon the premium that was put on there. You know, still it was a good buy territory last, you know, before. Let's see now for year to date. Year to date, we are up 2%, but again, we're up 2%, but look at all the space that's underneath of that line. So we were below that for a good portion of the year. And then here we are for the 1 year. So going back 365 days, we're up 15%. So that's pretty nice if you bought back here, you know, a year ago. And for the 5-year, we're up 57%. So silver, silver. You know, so right now I'm not doing any buying anyway because I'm getting ready to move. So I'm going into cash to prepare, you know, to support the move. So I'm not doing anything with buying right now. But if I was in the buying world, you know, the mid to low 20s is a buy range for me. Yes, you know, I mean, it's nice when it's in the teens, of course, but that doesn't happen a whole lot, especially with premiums these days. So, you know, your low 20s is good buying category right now for silver. So I'm guessing that some of you may have done some buying during the last week or so. I'm not, but it doesn't mean that I wouldn't. I'm just not because getting ready for the move. So, E-Waste Jill, welcome to the crowd. Great to have you here. So how about you all? Did anybody do any buying this week? Did you do any selling this week? Man, I wish I could get, I would really like to see the prices, you know, kind of get up there a little bit because, you know, I wouldn't mind selling some of my silver to help help with my cash position right now as I get ready for this move. But you know, we can't drive that train, can we? All right, so we'll just go ahead and buy while it's still in these in the mid to low 20s, and just hang on for the ride, because there's going to be a lot more ups and downs with silver. It just keeps on going up and down. It's a very volatile precious metal for buying right now. All right, don't scrap with Texas. Welcome to the show. Great to have you here. All righty. Well, we are unless you all have any questions about silver, we're going to get moving along here. Let's see. What is this? What is Truck Fans saying? Speaking of Change Sharky, do you know how many? Oh no, I guess we're still on for 3 tonight. So at some point after my stream ends, Scrapping Irish will pick up the show. I don't know if he's going to adjust for his. I don't know if he's going to push his start up early, or if he's just going to keep going with where he's at right now. He'll let us know here. And then I've already seen the announcement for Solars' premiere, which is not really a premiere in the premiere sense. Usually premieres are something new and exciting, and they got to tell you all about it. But she does premieres as a way to be able to interact while the video is playing. So it's just an interesting twist on how to use that. So Irish is saying he can adjust if that suits. What do you all want him to do? Let him know in the comments. Tell him what you want him to do. He's got flexibility, so give it to him. I'm going to take a swig of my stock price here, and I'm going to help my stock market value here, and while you're giving him your comments and feedback. Hey, Raphael, great to have you here, bud. All right, so our safety note for the week. As is usually the case with safety notes, this one is also something that, is going on this week for me. I was doing my normal safety check and realized that, we're getting ready. The tires on both the mighty Sharkmobile and my wife's car are getting a little bit we need to start looking at some new tires there. So our safety note today is tire safety. And tire safety is one of those things that I don't know about you all, but I have seen some of the most ridiculous things going on with cars and trailers coming into the scrap yards and moving around some of these neighborhoods. I mean, we're talking tires that are balder than all get out. I mean, balder than Scrapping Irish. They have no business being on the road, and yet people are still out there driving around on those things. I can kind of understand it's easy to forget about your trailer tires. Maybe you shouldn't. You ought to be checking those too. But, I can understand kind of sort of how you might lose track of your trailer tires. But, your primary vehicle, you're in it all the time. You're driving around it all the time. You really got to pay attention to that because if you have a blowout, that's extremely dangerous, especially if you're driving fast. You can hurt yourself. You can hurt somebody else. You can kill yourself. And if you have a blowout and you have a trailer, if you have a blowout with your vehicle and you have a trailer, well, then it gets really nasty. A blowout on your trailer is not as bad, but it can be. But you can still just sort of drag it off the side of the road. You really want to pay attention to your tire safety. Now, the primary things for tire safety are, of course, pressure, tread, balance and alignment, rotation, and the size. So, tire pressure. You ought to be checking your tire pressure about once a month. And don't rely on your TPM, your tire pressure monitor. If you have a, if you're in a newer vehicle with a tire pressure monitor, because a lot of times by the time that little flat tire light or that low pressure light comes on, you're well below pressure in your tires. So you definitely want to check your tire pressure regularly. Now, in more modern kind of vehicles, it's the tire pressure monitor will send the actual pressure to your console. So, for instance, in the Mighty Sharkmobile, I don't have to get out and go around and check the pressure. I can check it while I'm in the car. It'll tell me what the pressures are, so I can check it, very regularly. If you don't have that kind of newer vehicle that you can see those pressures, then yeah, you want to check it at least every month. Now, there's some other good reasons besides just the safety of the tire for doing this. A properly inflated set of tires will save you about 11 cents a gallon for fuel consumption, and you will extend the life of the tire, in some cases up to 4,700 miles or so. So, you definitely want to be paying attention to that, because the pure economics mean that it's a really good idea to keep tabs of your tire pressure. But if you overinflate your tires, you're going to wear wrong. If you underinflate, you're going to wear wrong. And there's sometimes when you do need to adjust your tire pressure in order, based on a driving situation, but you don't want to always be in that situation. So make sure that you are checking your tire pressures. The tread wear is another one. If your tires are bald, if you don't have enough tread, you're not going to get the traction that you need. And while that may not be a big deal on a dry, warm road, it can be a disaster in rain or any kind of snow or ice. So if you get below 2/32 of an inch, and I wrote down the math here because I know some of you are going to ask, that's 1.59 millimeters. If you get below 2/3 of an inch, it's time to get new tires. Now, here in the US, we have a really neat little trick that we can do. So you can take a US penny. The light's not going to let you see it too well. I apologize for that. But on the US penny, if you stick it into the tread so that you've got Lincoln upside down and you can see Lincoln's head, then you need to replace the tread. All right. So the distance from the edge of the penny up to Lincoln's head is about 2/32 of an inch. So just go out there with your penny, stick it in there. And if, with upside down Lincoln, and if you can see Lincoln's head, you need new tires. By the way, this is a 1963 penny. What is special about this penny, this 1963 US penny? I'm looking forward to see the comments, see if anybody knows why that penny is in a special place with a bunch of other pennies. All right, so that's your tread wear. The other thing is your balance and alignment, of course, because if your wheels are canted the wrong way or whatever, you're not going to wear the tires properly. You're going to reduce the wear and tear or increase the wear and tear on the tires. So you definitely want to make sure that you do your balance and your alignment and your tire rotation so that you're evenly wearing the tires. So make sure you're getting your rotation. I usually just have them do that when I get the oil change. I use synthetic oil in the Sharkmobile, so it's about 5,000 miles when I get my oil change. So they just do the rotation there. And then, of course, you definitely want to make sure you have the right size tire on your vehicle. Now, some people like to play games with their truck tires. Well, You know, it's like you get some people on trucks that are putting tires that were way too big. It's like, what in the world are you thinking? Then with people with, you know, some hopped up cars, they're putting weird sizes on the cars, and the cars aren't designed to operate with that size tire. And yeah, that's a weird thing too. So you definitely want to make sure you have the right size tire. Now, the other thing, and you know, and the standard categories for tire safety are all about, you know, assuming that you've picked a tire that is appropriate for your driving. So the other category that I would throw in with your tire considerations are, where do you live? What kind of tire makes sense for you? So here in Florida, a winter tire wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. We don't get very cold here. We do have a few cold days every now and then, but you know, for the most part, we're talking about hot roads. So summer type tires, all season tires with a summer leaning that handle rain are the appropriate tires for down here. Further north, you're going to be looking at all season tires, maybe all season tires that have what they call the three-peak, the snow symbol on them, in order to give you better traction and control with snow. And if you know, if you're way up north, well, now you're just going with hardcore snow tires in the winter. So you know, that'll be changing out tires at some point in the late fall, early winter to put on the snow tires, which have tread and chemistry specifically designed for cold weather and snow and such, and then switching them out again later on in the spring. Now, those of you that live way up north, you probably also have chains and all this other stuff. So the point that I'm trying to make is make sure that you have a tire that's appropriate for the driving conditions that you are normally in. So I try to strike a balance with the Sharkmobile. I've been using the Michelin Defender 2s. They're an all-weather tire. They're you know, good in the rain. They're not going to be necessarily fantastic in the snow, but they're okay they'll be okay in the snow when we get relocated up to the mountains of Western North Carolina. So they'll do okay up there. I'm debating on, do I want to maybe go with something that's a little more of an aggressive winter all-season tire for getting up there, you know, an all-season tire that is better snow rated. I'm still kind of going back and forth on that. I'm just not quite sure which way to go on that yet. Now, my wife's car, on the other hand, the other thing that I have to worry about with the Sharkmobile is, you know, I get into muddy situations sometimes and going through scrap yards. So I want a tire that, you know, is going to be kind of tough. You know, is going to, I don't want off-road tread. I don't need that. But, you know, a tire that I can get in and out of the dirt when I need to by going into four-wheel drive and having enough reasonable traction to be able to move. My wife's car, you know, she just does city driving. So for her, it's about a comfortable ride. And we're kind of, I'm really chewing on what kind of tire to get her for when we go up north, so that she has both a comfortable ride, but the capability to deal with the occasional snows that we're going to deal with when we get up in the mountains. All right, so Truck Fan is saying, make sure you have a torque wrench when you're changing your tires. Yeah, if you're changing them yourself, you do want to make sure that you've got a torque wrench, that you use it properly. You know, I just, when I'm doing the tire stuff, my local mechanic takes care of it for me. You know, I go in for an oil change and they just, sometimes they just throw it in. You know, it's just because the guy knows me and I've been doing business with him for a long time. And, you know, so that's something to think about. Oh, the penny. That's right. You guys picked up on the penny. So yeah, it was 1982. And it depends on the mint, but 1982 was when they made the changeover. And so you know, this penny will be mostly copper, like 90, 98, something like that. Whereas, you know, if it's, so generally speaking, 82 and older, you know, it's probably copper. 83 and younger, then it's, this nasty chemistry of all kinds of junk. Yeah, it was sort of a trick question because I was saying 83, 63, but that was just to see if you all knew about the 82. So yeah, if you're looking at pennies and you want to, keep them for copper, even though you're not supposed to destroy U.S. currency, so don't do that. But if you were to happen to want to hang on to them just in case the U.S. ever decided to get rid of pennies, then 82 and older are good pennies to hang on to. All right, back to tires here. Let's see, Rafael, you get some winners up there, man. So Rafael, switching time to winter when the temps drop below 7, and he has a Somerset for the car, not for the trailer. Yeah, I guess it's not as important for your trailer because your trailer is not driving the vehicle. So for the trailer, as long as the tires are not going to, fail on you, then I don't think you need. It's interesting. I don't think you need winter tires on a trailer. I wouldn't see why you would. Now, of course, if your trailer is carrying a heavier load and you've got brakes on your trailer, then yeah, it would be useful if your trailer tread would have at least some traction so that when you stepped on the brake and your trailer was braking along with your vehicle, you had, it didn't just skid and stuff. So, but trailers are a whole nother mix when it comes to tires and driving and being careful. So, Truck Fan's got his cans he's got to get on to. That's right, Recycling. Welcome to the show. Great to have you here. Yeah, so I've been busy looking at tires, trying to figure out what to. I'm probably for the Sharkmobile. I think I'm just going to go back with the Defenders, the Michelin Defenders that I've had on there. Good tire, I know it. I'm comfortable with it, so I'm probably going to go with that. Still kind of wrestling on what to get for Mrs. Shark. I'm looking at the Michelin Climate 2. I don't know if anybody out there has ever driven on the Climate 2s. I'm suspecting they're going to be a little bit noisier than the tires that she has, the OEM tires that came with the car, because the Michelin Climate 2s are of a little bit more aggressive tread for dealing with rain and snow. But yeah, we're going up to the mountains, so we're going to need to rethink some of these things. All right, tires. That's it for tires. Let's get moving along here. Irish, I'm trying to drag things out here. Let me know if you're going to come in early, bud. Here, I want to check and see if Irish sent me any notes about what he's going to do. Nope, nothing yet. So we're just going to keep on plugging along here. All right, so our industrial metal for today. We haven't talked about this one for a while, so let's get on over here and take a look at aluminum. Now, remember, we are using the tradingeconomics.com source for aluminum these days. Real quick here, take a note of their summary statement for aluminum. Aluminum futures climbed to over $2,250 a ton in March, reaching a 5-week high, spurred by the looming threat of the EU ban on Russian aluminum. Despite not imposing new aluminum sanctions in the latest package for Ukraine's invasion anniversary, the EU is expected to announce more import bans soon. The potential loss of Russian supply could result in a 500,000-ton shortfall in Europe, challenging Mideastern suppliers in rapid substitution. In 2023, Middle Eastern producers contributed 9% of global supplies, shipping approximately 2 million metric tons to Europe. EU imports from Russia, constituting about 8% of the total, decreased from 12% in 2022 and 19% in 2018. So if the ban extends to primary aluminum products, it may disrupt Europe's supply chain impacting premiums, carbon footprint, and downstream competitiveness. Additionally, further pressure may come from heightening shipping costs from the Middle East and other Asian regions because of the Red Sea attacks. So, you know, I hate to say it, but from a scrapper's perspective, that's good news, right? I mean, that's a terrible thing to say, but, you know, anything that's going to raise the price of aluminum is good because it's going to raise the price for us for scrap aluminum, right? But isn't it terrible that we have to think about it that way? Yeah. Anyway, all right. So let's get back to this. Now, here we see the 1 year chart. I've got candlesticks going, and I tell you what, you know, one of the things that I do when I look at the candlesticks charts in this larger format here is I ask myself, what's my first impression of the color? Is it red or green? And you know, what jumps out to me is a lot of red. So, you know, overall we look like we're down, and we can certainly see that because we go from peak to peak, we see it going down. When we look at the troughs here, these lower troughs were you know, forming a reasonable floor for this run. But you know, with the peaks coming down and the floor staying somewhat, that doesn't, yeah, you know, that means we're just converging in on, you know, some price range in here. The other thing is, if you kind of, you know, you kind of see this sinusoidal pattern going on right here. So this looks like it's a pretty good baseline here, 2,239 a ton. But you see a lot of variation going on with aluminum right now. Hey, later on, Rafael, take care, man. So a lot of variation going on during the course of the year. Let's zoom in here a little bit. Oops. So if we zoom in, we're going to go back here. Here's January here. So we can see that we had this drop. It climbed up a little bit. This is a weird signal for the day here because the red tells you it closed below the open. So it's like, you know, there was a spike in the aluminum pricing and then it fell off again. And we've seen that in other charts before where aluminum had these weird spikes that were, you know, you're just kind of scratching your head going, what was up with that? So we look like we were trying to climb out here, and, you know, we're up here right now, right? So we're kind of bouncing around up here. But the latest closings were down because you can see the last candlestick is red. So yeah, there's a bunch of variation going on in aluminum. You know, it's we'll go back to the 1 year here. Aluminum is just not one of those metals that you have a reason to stockpile for potential value increase. We all know that aluminum it's one of those metals that is going to continuously be used. Airplanes, cars, vehicles, just trucks. It's a lot of aluminum that is getting used, and we need to have aluminum, products because they weigh less and give us the strength and those kind of things. So yeah, we're just, and you also, many of you know that there's aluminum windings, aluminum wire is a big thing these days. So, we're going to see more and more aluminum, but what are the impacts going to be for the long term? Hey, bottom line for me, aluminum is a cash flow metal. I don't hoard it, except to keep some that I may use for melting at some point in the future. And I just keep bringing my aluminum in. When I have a bin full, it goes in, whether it's sheet or cast, dirty, it doesn't matter. When I have enough aluminum to get some reasonable weight, I just take it in. It's a cash flow metal for me. And the only aluminum that I'm keeping aside is aluminum that I may use for melt projects later on. And what that is wire. So when I get insulated aluminum wire, if it's good thick aluminum wire, I will strip it, and then the aluminum wire, I keep that aside for future melt projects, because that may be one of the big things that I bring into the channel once I get relocated. I'm chewing on the idea here of starting to do some melting and casting projects when we get relocated up to North Carolina. So I'm starting to keep aside some aluminum so that I have a reserve to use when I start getting into that. But otherwise, aluminum is a cash flow metal. There isn't much reason to hang on to it. So speaking of our move in North Carolina, the trip last week was really, really good. It was chilly up there. I mean, it was in the low to mid 30s when we were up there in the mountains. And that was fun. We didn't get any snow. We had rain half of the time we were up there. So just sort of a cold, uncomfortable rain. Now, of course, once we get moved up there, we will acquire the right kind of clothing and stuff so that we'll be fine with the weather. But it was definitely different than being down here in Florida. And that's why we went up there in the winter, because we wanted to, just see what it's like up there. And of course, it's going to be much prettier when it snows. Otherwise you've got the trees don't have their leaves for the most part. You've got the evergreens that are out there, of course, but the trees don't have their leaves. It's kind of a brown, it's a wet, wintry look. And, that's fine. That's what the place looks like in the wintertime. Not worried about that at all. But the most important part was that I got to meet a couple of the folks that I'll be doing business with when I get up there. So I met with the owner of one of the two main scrap yards that is in the city area there, city county area. They're a fourth generation family run business. They've just been there forever. The current owner, real nice guy. I've met him a couple times now, and he and I have had some really good conversations about what I do relative to what they do and working together. Bottom line for his position is he collects electronic scrap. He doesn't really have people that are focused on it. He doesn't want to be focused on it. He does it because it's expected that he's going to do it. So our relationship is going to be that I will become his primary buyer for the electronic scrap. While I was up there, I got a tour of his main yard. They actually have two big yards up in the area there. So I got a tour of his main yard, and they already have a couple of gaylords that they're starting to fill up with boards and materials for me. I did tell him that he can go ahead and get rid of that gaylord box full of monitors. He got a good chuckle out of that one. That's probably going to be a big thing for me that I'm going to have to change too, because he was telling me that, they will not take monitors at the landfill. So he has to pay to get rid of monitors. And I'm going to have to do the same thing. I've been very fortunate here that the county that I'm in will let me put the monitors in the trash, or either take the monitors to them or put them in the trash. It's not, I don't like it. It's not a great thing, but what the people at the county have told me is, we've tried to keep them separated and recycle them, and we can't, we end up throwing them back in the trash because we don't have a way to get rid of them. It's not a great thing. It's not good at all. So when I get relocated, I will be probably using the same buyer that the big scrapyard is using, because they have vetted this buyer as being a responsible handler of monitors. So that means I'm going to have to start charging people for monitors, or if it's monitors that come with enough PCs and servers and things like that, there'll be a trade-off there. So yeah, monitors, I'm going to have to change the way I deal with monitors. Patrick, welcome. Great to have you here, man. But it was good to see he's already starting to put material aside for me. And, we're already locked in. We know what we're doing. The second thing was I got to meet the owner of a pretty good size computer repair shop that's in the area. When I looked at these folks online, I saw that they offered electronic scrap recycling. So I had reached out to them and said, I'm coming up to the area. I'd like to talk with you. We had a really good conversation. This is what he told me. He's like, yeah, I started doing the electronic scrap thing because nobody else up here was doing electronic scrap. He said, I felt like it needed to be done. I don't really want to do it, but because he's repairing computers and taking used computers and getting them fixed up and reselling them, he says, I end up with this stuff anyway. So he is very excited about me coming up there because we have locked in an arrangement where I will be buying his end-of-life electronic scrap from him, and he will buy from me that scrap that still can be reused. This solves a huge issue that I have, routinely dealt with, where I get these comments about, oh, you should have resold that PC, you should have resold that graphics card, you should have, those kind of comments that you all have seen pop up in my videos. Well, now I have someone locally that will be able to buy the reusable components from me. This is fantastic because I will get more value for that material. That material will be able to continue on its life for much longer. And between the two companies, my company and his company, we are already planning on a major blitz in the community now to help deal with the e-scrap challenge. So this is going to be really, really cool. And I was really surprised when he told me that there wasn't anybody in the area that was already doing electronic scrap, because, I sort of figured, oh, for sure. I mean, this area, they recycle everything. And he said, it's just no one ever picked it up. Nobody ever got to it. So that's going to be a big issue for that. This has the potential to really change the nature of what I do. So I'm really looking forward to that. David asked the question, and it's a great question here. So I asked this question of the PC buyer, what about plastics? And he said that that's going to be a challenge, but he thinks that between the two of us, we should be able to generate enough of separated type plastics that we can interest some buyers. He wasn't able to get buyers interested because he didn't generate enough. But it could be that with the two of us working together now, we might be able to do something about that. So that's another exciting thing, that we may actually be able to start doing something about the plastics too. More on that once we get up there and we get settled in. Scrapping on the Fly, welcome to the show, man. Great to have you here. Solars, I'm really excited. I'm really excited about being able to take this to the next level and be able to make a difference locally and such. This is very, very exciting. Now, here's the third thing that played out that was totally unexpected. So my wife and I are driving around the area. We're trying to get a feel for everything. And we came across an aquarium and shark research center. up in the mountains of Western North Carolina. There's a aquarium and shark research center. Who was expected that? So I have just started to communicate with them about what it is they're doing, their, the level of their research, what other shark researchers they're working with, because that could be a very cool new way for us to move our annual contributions for shark research instead of tagging, which we haven't been able to do because we've had problems with the University of Miami now. When the lead researcher took off, the lead researcher is doing something that's a little bit different than what we were doing before. Atlantic Shark Expeditions is his new thing. By the way, if you ever really want to go, cage diving with great whites or something like that, check out Atlantic Shark Expeditions. But this has the potential to be another interesting twist to what becomes of Shark Scrapper and how I support shark research. So I'm really excited to be able to get up there and see their facility and get to know them better and see if that's going to be a good, viable thing for us to do with our donations. So all in all, it was a great trip up to the area. Plus, we ate at some really good restaurants. They've got an awesome food scene up there. It's just amazing, the quality and the diversity of foods that are available up there. Just amazing. So we had some really good meals. We got to know the area, so we have an idea of what we're looking at when we are going to be buying the house. I've got an idea of the things I have to think about for where the shark cage is going to get relocated. So just a really, really good trip. It was a very important trip to make. Learned a lot, and it's going to help out a lot. The other thing that I have made the decision that I'm going to do is how to pack up the shark cage. So in order to make the timing a little bit better, at least something I can plan for, I'm going to get a pod, one of those pods, the moving container things. So I'll get one of those delivered to the shark cage, and then I can pack that up and then have that moved up to the staging area up in Western North Carolina. When you do the math, it's, whether I paid a moving company to move me up there or not, I'm certainly saving some money because moving company would have been really expensive. They're going to be really expensive for the house, but moving the shark cage itself, that would have been a little interesting. This way, I'll have the pod delivered. I can take my time, get it loaded over a few days, and then get the shark cage cleaned out so that the landlord can, get somebody else in there. And I don't have to be worrying that I'm going to be dealing with both the shark cage and moving the house. And, there's just too many moving parts. So when there's too many moving parts, you lock down what you can so that you can react to the stuff that comes along. So it's definitely one of those things that I can at least manage that. And JR Cat, brings up a really good point with those pods. You got to be careful not to overload them. So the 16-foot pod can handle 10,000 pounds. And what I'm concerned about, the heavy things that I have are the 4-foot by 4-foot deck scale, the Genie Lift pallet jack. I'm not going to take the big, heavy shelving unit that I put together from the cell phone tower. So I'm not worried about that weight. I'm going to either sell that or scrap that. Probably the thing that I'm most concerned about right now is the deck scale. 4 feet by 4 feet, that thing weighs a lot. I've got to figure out what I'm doing with that one still. And if I'm going to move it, I got to figure out how I'm going to get it into the pod. I have spoken to the scale company that I purchased it from. I was hoping maybe they'd do a buyback and put it in their rental pool, but you know, they don't need any scales like that for their rental pool. So you know, I'm either going to have to sell that, or I'm going to have to hire some day laborers to come in and help me get that thing lifted and moved into the pod when it's time to do that. So anyway, that's the plan. We're going to be bringing in a pod. I'm either going to do that mid-April, no later than the 1st of May. The lease expires the end of May, so we are in the countdown here, folks. We got like 82 days, and I got to be out of the shark cage. So there's lots that has to get done. Now the good news is I have been burning down inventory, so that's cool. And I am reducing my pickups. So you know, I won't have a whole lot of inventory that needs to come with me. And then, you know, the furniture and those kind of things, the workbenches and stuff, I'll be able to get that taken care of. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. And no, JR Cat, I'm not spoiled anymore. I have had to do a couple of moves since I've left the Navy. So I know how to move without having all that Navy PCS assistance in the background. I've done a few now on my own, so I know how to do this. Doesn't mean I like it at all, but you know, it's what's got to be done. Let's see, Truck Fan saying a lot easier to move two medium-sized sharks than one large shark. You know, it's yeah, that may be true, but hey, as long as I don't put more than 10,000 pounds in this container, and it's 16 feet, you know, it's 16 feet, it's 8 feet high, 8 feet wide. I think I can fit everything in there without maxing it out. That's the plan anyway. We should be all right. And no, it's not going to go on the Sharkmobile. They'll move it up there in one of their trucks. You know, they've got a lifting mechanism that lifts the whole thing up off of the deck, you know, vertically. So it comes straight up and then over and sits down on their truck. It's really interesting to watch how that system works. So, you know, it makes a lot of sense to do it that way for those kind of things. So let's see. Oh yeah. Yeah. Laborers at the Home Depot parking lot. Yeah, I've got a couple of sources around here that I can get some laborers to come in if I need to. So yeah, we'll see how that one works out. Yeah, I know it's I should be able to get it to move it in. The guy, when I was talking to the guy at the scale company, he said it's no problem if you want to set it up on its side. You don't have to lay it flat. You can set it up on its side. He said he recommends at least 3 people for that size scale. Yeah, we might have to get it recalibrated once we get up there because we will have had to pick it up and move it around. But he said, look, as long as you don't drop the thing, the calibration is probably going to be okay as well. So in fact, he was telling me that they store, for their rental pool, they store those things up on their side. He said they calibrate them. They're all stored up on their sides, and they don't have any trouble with them like that. So, you know, I think the plan if I move it is hire some people to help me get it into the pod, have it setting upright, probably up against the front bulkhead, maybe a side, we'll see, and then pack a bunch of stuff in there so that it's not going to fall over. That's sort of the approach that I'm having in my mind right now. The thing I was wrestling with last night, it's funny, I'm laying in bed going through all this stuff, and I was wrestling with the idea of should I see if they can actually get the pod inside the shark cage. You know, the way they move those things, I think if the truck backs up, you know, the roll-up door will go way high. So I might be able to get the roll-up door high enough that the truck can actually back into the shark cage and then leave the pod inside the shark cage. Hey, Ian, how's it going, man? And that way I'm not even taking up parking lot space. So I need to look at that one too, because that'd be really nice if I can get everything away from the front area of the shark cage and then just have them bring the pod into the shark cage and place it in the shark cage. That'll make it much better for loading and not taking up parking space and stuff like that. But if all else fails, it'll just go sit in one of the parking spaces. I mean, I'm allocated 2 parking spaces in this place. So, that we'll just do what we deal with there. All right. So that was my trip to our new location up in the mountains of North Carolina. It was a really good trip. We got a lot of great information, and I have got a lot of work that has to get done between now and then. Stay tuned. But first, let's move on to our stock market report for today. Those of you that are Patreon members, you got to see me prepare these charts. You got a behind the scenes look at everything that goes into preparing these charts. So I hope you enjoyed that behind the scenes video. Let's get right into our stock market report for today. And we are talking about CMC. Now, in this week's issue of the Value Line Survey, we had the aerospace defense industry, metal fabricators, steel industry, insurance industry, property insurance, Midwest banks, medical services, healthcare information services, and biotech. But the really cool thing is that there's 2 companies that most of us know, especially here in the U.S. Any of the main cities, you have probably seen one or both of these companies' scrapyards at your area. The first one is CMC. So commercial metals, CMC, they actually offer a dividend yield. It isn't fantastic, but it's there, right? 1.2%. And their current stock price is $55.03. That was as of the 1st of March, by the way. Now, those of you that have watched this for a while, you know that I have very strict criteria before I will invest in one. 17 years of increasing cash flow per share, earnings per share, or dividends per share. And you can see that CMC is not qualified for me to consider for my portfolio in any way, shape, or form. But there's a lot of different reasons why people invest. And because this is a recycling company, I felt like I should share this company with you all. Let you all decide if it's something that you're interested in. CMC is a world leader in the recycling, production, and fabrication of steel products through its networks of mills, recycling, and fabrication centers. It operates 2 segments: North America, which makes up about 86% of its revenues, and Europe, which makes up the rest, which is basically their international division. They had mixed results going into this quarter for 2024, mostly because of what's been going on with the steel prices that we know all too well. We've experienced what's happening here. So it's interesting because, as scrappers, we get frustrated. We say, oh man, I can't believe they're not paying that much for steel, right, for scrap steel. And then when you look at the stock reports on what happened to the actual recycling centers, well, they had some issues because of that, right? Because, the prices were down. They're not making as much money either. In the case of CMC, their net sales estimate of $1.965 billion is a modest decline. both year to year and sequentially due to the slowing of contract awards and weaker steel prices. Now, in some places, we've had some steel prices come back a little bit. So, there's, we are seeing that come around a little bit, but yeah, they've run into the same challenges that we have with the steel prices. They have recently done a realignment. So management has realigned its business to create a new segment called the Emerging Business Group. And that will compromise the recently acquired Tensar and EDSCO, EDSCO companies. But it doesn't give us a whole lot of information about Tensar and EDSCO, and I wasn't able to come up with a lot. So we'll need to look at that a bit more, see if I can find some more details at some point in the future. It is ranked above average for timeliness, and they're trading within their price range. So what does that mean? That means you're really not expecting to see a whole lot come out of this. The dividend is not great. We saw that 1.2. Prices aren't great. You're not looking at a lot of growth going on here. So, I'm not sure why you would consider buying this stock. I'm not considering it. I'm not going to buy it. And I just don't see where this would fit, what portfolio this would fit into. So, yeah, this one is, we see this company a lot. We do business with them. I do business with them. They got a big mill right here in Jacksonville. But yeah, it's not one that I'm going to get interested in. Now, the other company that we frequently deal with, most of you probably knew them as Schnitzer. They are now Radius Recycling, but they used to be Schnitzer Steel. In fact, it was funny when I was updating the chart, I had to change the ticker and name because I've had them on my chart here as Schnitzer for a long time. So anyway, Radius Recycling. Now this yield is a little more like what we might be interested in at 3%. And this stock price is something that you could get your head wrapped around. Interestingly enough, this stock price is comparable to an ounce of steel right now. An ounce of silver. So think about this now for a minute. If you were to take that $25 and buy an ounce of silver, you're not going to get any interest off of it. It is going to sit wherever you put your silver and just sit there. And you hope that at some point, the price of silver will go up enough that you can sell it and make some money on it. If you take that $25 and you buy a share of Radius Recycling, you are going to earn 3% interest on it. Every quarter, you're going to get some money from it. So that is sort of the interesting, trade that people got to think about when they make some investment decisions. You go with a physical metal like silver, you're not earning any interest, and it's just sitting there taking up space, and you hope you're going to be able to sell it for something more valuable later on. With a stock in a company like Radius Recycling, you get your interest payment every quarter, and there's a good possibility that the value of the stock will increase enough that you're also going to make money when you sell it down the road. So that's why I invest in dividend yielding stocks. Now, I also have precious metals because that's just part of how I diversify my portfolio. But it's a really important thing that I hope everybody is thinking about when they're making some decisions about what they're going to do with their investment dollars. Hey, Boats, great to have you here. This is from a, if all you did was look at the interest and the price, you might take an interest in this, right? But they're not qualified. They're just not qualified by cash flow, earnings, or dividend per share. Their dividend has not changed since 2013. It's been 75 cents a share since 2013. So, and if we go look at the graphical representation here, we can see that cash flow and earnings have been per share have been all over the place. Huge volatility going on there. And it's been since 2013, dividends just flatlined there. But, the dividend is still 3%. So, maybe that's something to think about. Let's see, what do the analysts have to say? So Radius Recycling, formerly Schnitzer Steel, engages in recycling ferrous and non-ferrous scrap metals, as well as used and salvaged vehicles. They're also in the manufacturing of finished steel products. They've now brought everything together under a single unit. Okay, yeah, that's nice. 52% of their sales in 2023 came from outside North America. So that's nice to know. They're a global company. They've got stuff going on all over the place. So for those of you that are on the pond, across the pond on either side, this is a company that has interest for you too. Company sales exceeded their target, the analyst target, by more than $100 million. So that's good, exhibiting a growth of 12%. So that's good. And here's the difference, because you might be scratching your head saying, well, wait a minute, how come CMC didn't have that kind of growth? Well, CMC is mostly steel, right? And Schnitzer, now Radius, is ferrous and non-ferrous. So it gives them the diversity that allows them to take advantage of the non-ferrous value that CMC wasn't able to take advantage of. The analysts say that they are cautious but optimistic for the rest of the year. And long-term sustainability trends are poised to provide a solid foundation for success. Demand for metals used in low-carbon technology should provide tailwinds, that means push things along, from global decarbonization efforts. Anticipated deficits for metals like copper and nickel, alongside growing demand for recycled materials by manufacturers aiming to reduce their environmental impact and cater to eco-conscious customers, underscore this increasing potential. These shares offer good 3 to 5 year total capital appreciation potential with risk. What does that mean? That means that in 3 to 5 years, if you were to buy a bunch of these stocks right now, a bunch of shares right now, in 3 to 5 years, when you sell them, the combination of the dividends that you would get and the increased value of the shares, is considered good by these analysts. So, and again, remember, this is for those of you that aren't here a lot or haven't paid attention to this. These folks at Value Line Surveys, they do not take any advertising. So this is a very unbiased report. They just look at the numbers. They just look at the industry, and then they explain to you what they believe is happening based on the numbers and the news and the industry and those kind of things. So they don't, there's no bias developed by advertisers pushing one company over another. All right, so if we get back to these two companies, if you wanted to bring a recycling company into your portfolio, a publicly traded recycling company, are one or the other of these something you ought to consider? Now, neither one is qualified by my standard. But of these two companies, if you're interested in doing this, I would suggest you take a look at Radius Recycling. Make sure you do your due diligence. I am not a licensed investment counselor, stockbroker, any of those kind of things. This is just what I do when I'm looking at stocks that I'm thinking about buying, and I want to share that with you. So of the two companies, I would take a look at Radius Recycling if I was going to do this, but I'm not going to. I am, well, first of all, you all know that I'm not, I'm going into cash right now for my move, so I'm not buying any stocks. Even if I was buying stocks, I would have a real hard time justifying to myself why I should buy this stock, even though it's giving me 3% interest. But with the kind of risk that's involved here and the fact that they're not qualified, yeah, for me, this is a no. This is a no-go. What do you all think? Is there anything here that captures your interest that you're excited about? All right, so I am going to take a look here. Let's see. Irish. Have you? Okay, so Scrapping Irish has changed his start time. So he is going to start early. So if you have autoplay enabled, when I end this stream, it's going to take you right over to Scrapping Irish's stream. And he's probably going to get over there and complain about us going to daylight savings time early. So, I'll be ready for that. But it was great sharing all this with you all today. We're going to wrap things up, head over to the pond. If you do not have autoplay enabled, then I encourage you to go to YouTube, type in Scrapping Irish in the YouTube search bar and join us over in Ireland for at least another hour of fun and games over there. You never know who's coming up in the panel. You never know where the discussion is going. So it's always a lot of fun when we're over in Ireland. All right, everybody, have a great week. Be safe. I'm going to try to not pull out what little hair I have left.